Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy, the Mad Guy, going up here today with the final top 5 of the wrestlers from the 80s to 2000s. And yeah, these 5 are, I think, well deserved. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got my little Major Chip Hazard turned up. And yeah, I think it's the same one that I had as a kid. I put him up there. For some reason he wouldn't fit on those little ones up there, but I think he still looks pretty cool. Probably gonna try and get some new shelves and stuff sorted out at some point. Trying to get some figures up on these walls and things. Try to make things look a little bit better. But anyway, I'm gonna go straight into it with number 5, and that is The Rock. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, probably one of the most recognizable people in the world right now. But in his wrestling career, from his early days as Rocky Maivia, the son of Rocky Johnson, say what you want about him, people knew they were getting into something special with, Rocky Johnson's son, Rocky Maivia. But it wasn't until, The Rock became The Rock, that their whole outlook on The Rock changed. The Rock was in many ways, something that was so well known, well done for the Attitude Era. And he's had a career for a long time, even, in recent pay-per-views, in the last, 4 or 5 years, he still had fights. Of course, nowadays, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is probably more known as an actor than a wrestler. But that doesn't change the fact that his career in WWF was huge. He's sort of obviously Rocky Maivia, this sort of young prodigy wrestler. Then obviously joined up with teams like the Nation of Domination. The Rock has had he was again part of the Attitude Era, helped create things like SmackDown, of course. The attitude, know your role and shut your mouth, if you smell what The Rock is cooking. The whole, it doesn't matter what your name is. He had the great attitude. He had this sort of heel vibe to him, the people's champ. He was a heel, he was a good guy, he's had a great career. The people's elbow, always being the people champ, the most electrifying man on the universe. The Rock definitely deserves to be in the top 5. Whether you like him as a person now, but as a wrestler in the 90s, you knew who The Rock was, early 2000s. The Rock has done it all, and in my opinion, you'll just never get better than The Rock in his prime. It was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And at number 4 we have Triple H. Of course, Triple H has had 30-something year career. In his early days as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, this really sort of, in the early days, it was really, it could have gone either way with Triple H, Triple H, as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, was this sort of pompous arse, if you will, this sort of, Hunter Hearst Helmsley was, he was come out and he would always look like he was better than everyone, like classy guy, but then obviously teamed up with China, and then obviously helped create DX. Of course, DX is one of the most recognizable factions in WWF, WWE. Triple H has done it all. He's had an amazing career. And obviously he's not long just retired. He's had to retire from wrestling because of heart problems, which has been something going on for a long time. But Triple H has had an amazing career, and like I said, it could have really gone either way. He could have just been someone that was buried under the rest of the people. But who can forget the Monday Night Wars? The DX teaming up with Shawn Michaels, X-Pac, the New Age Outlaws, China, invading WCW. Triple H has done it all. Some amazing matches at WrestleMania, of course, with the Undertaker. Triple H has got an amazing in-ring career. He was this larger than life wrestler. He's grown and he's huge now. Of course, now he's part owner of WWE. The owner of the leader of NXT, but also one of the chief commanding officers of the WWE. But Triple H has done it all, and well deserves to be in the top 5 wrestlers of all time. Who hasn't, pretended to be Triple H in the shower with the drinking and squirting into the sky, and that pedigree is still one of the most recognisable finishers of all time. But Triple H is always going to be one of the best of all time. And who can forget that awesome soundtrack? It's time to play the game. Number 3, we have the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was the epitome of, he was around in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, even the 2010 plus. He's had an amazing career in WWE. From his early days with Marty Jannetty as the Rockers, or the New Rockers, or whatever, the Rockers. Who can forget that moment in the barbershop with the kick that was heard around the world. But to my opinion, that kick had to happen. It needed to happen because Shawn Michaels could have easily just lost his way as a jobber, as just a tag team wrestler. But after that kick, it really sort of changed the way we looked at Shawn Michaels. Went from being just a tag team specialist to being one of the most recognizable and loved wrestlers of all time. He's had a heel path, he's had a face path. If you were a kid in the 90s and the late 80s, when Shawn Michaels would come out, when that music would start, it was crazy. There was a pop like anything else. People would scream. People the barricades would fall over with all these women trying to get at him. He was the sexiest man alive back in the day. Women wanted to be with him, men wanted to be him. The Heartbreak Kid. He was this sexy guy. Who could make women fall over their feet, literally, to get at him. The sweet chin music, one of the best super kicks still today. Had an amazing career. Who can forget some of the greatest ladder matches? He's fought people like Razor Ramon, Triple H, Diesel, Psycho Sid, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, The Undertaker, The Rock. Tons and tons and tons of great things over so many different generations. Who can forget the retirement match with Undertaker at WrestleMania? Shawn Michaels was the epitome of one of the greatest of all time, one of the best wrestlers of all time. Again, who can forget that WrestleMania moment after winning the Royal Rumble and going on to be that dream was kept alive. Shawn Michaels, part of DX, has done it all, and still, in my opinion, is one of the best of all time. And you gotta love the Heartbreak Kid. And then at number 2, kind of an obvious one, the badass Stone Cold Steve motherfucking Austin. Well, this is another example of someone that really could have got buried. In his early days of stunning Stone Cold or stunning Steve Austin, people just looked at him as just another, wrestler that probably would have come and gone. And then he had his early career with, with going on with Ted DiBiase, and of course, Ted DiBiase having to retire after losing against Savio Vega. Stone Cold could have easily become someone that was buried, but Stone Cold, in my opinion, was the reason, one of the top reasons why WWF survived the Monday Night Raws. Why? Because he helped create the Attitude Era. Here comes along someone that was different. He was the face of the company, but the company didn't want him to be the face of the company. This badass, no nonsense, anti-hero almost. The fans loved him. Every time that glass broke, the pop was crazy. Stone Cold come out beer drinking, rattlesnake, one of the greatest of all time, the Stone Cold Stunner. Doesn't care. He would do everything his own way. It doesn't matter who you were. He would stun everyone. Whether you were his friend, he didn't have any friends, He was the rattlesnake, the lone wolf, help build the Attitude Era. Mr. McMahon, Stone Cold Steve Austin rivalry. Stone Cold just not long had a match at WrestleMania. Whether you like the match or not. But it just goes to show that Stone Cold is one of the most recognisable wrestlers of all time. Of course, he's done it all. He's been an actor as well. He's been in movies. He's been in TV shows. Of course, he's still a big part of WWE today with the Broken Skull Sessions podcast. He's had TV shows, But as a wrestler in the 90s, like I said, he could have easily just been buried. But this guy was the face of the company, whether or not they wanted him to be, and one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And at number one, we have one of the best wrestlers of all time, the greatest wrestler that ever existed, Gilbert. Gilbert, I'm joking. There's no way in a million years I'd put Gilbert on this list. The Undertaker. What can be said about The Undertaker that hasn't already been said? Spanning many generations of wrestling. From his early days as the early Undertaker, this was someone that, he was menacing. He was dark. You looked at the Undertaker and this was the sort of guy that would probably eat your soul, literally eat your soul. The Undertaker has done it all, and there's something about The Undertaker that will go down as one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. In the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010 plus, still, the streak, the 30, 20, 22, 23 streak, at WrestleMania, one of the greatest streaks in wrestling. I still remember that WrestleMania when the streak was broken. The world stood still for a moment. The crowd was silent as silent can be. The Undertaker has done it all. He's been multiple time champion. Been tag team champion. Teamed up with his brother. Has been part of so many different factions. Part of so many different tag teams. Been a heel. Been a face. So many different versions of the Undertaker. The early days. The Ministry of Darkness Undertaker. The American Badass with the motorbike, the biker Undertaker, the modern Undertaker, the Phenom, the one, the only, the greatest wrestler of all time, one of the greatest careers of all time. And it's taken this long for him to get in the Hall of Fame, but well deserved nonetheless. The Undertaker is the epitome of one of the greatest of all time, and will always go down as a legend. And who can forget some of the greatest matches that The Undertaker had? The matches with Mankind, the Hell in a Cell matches, the WrestleMania matches. He's buried more wrestlers, buried alive. This was this dark, forbidding figure. He was huge, but he had agility like a lightweight, could jump over ropes, And, when that gong started, the lightning, the room would go dark. Undertaker, slow and foreboding, almost like a Michael Myers or a Freddy Krueger making his way to the ring, slowly walking down. You know, he had this presence about him that was foreboding. The Phenom, the greatest of all time, and #1 on my list. But anyway, there we go, guys. I've still got some honourable mentions, and I'm going to do that in a separate video. Tonight I'm going to be watching Grave Encounters. I've actually loved this movie. This is probably one of my more favourite modern horror movies. This and As Above, So Below are probably two of my favourite modern movies, but also POV horror movies, you know, camera style. You know, this is absolute. I love this film, and I'll probably do a full review on it at some point. I also started playing that Warhammer Chaos Bane, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It is a Diablo clone, in no better terms than saying it's a Diablo clone. But I'm actually enjoying it, so I'm going to play some more of that tonight. And then watch some wrestling. I'm going back to watching wrestling now for, I'm going to get 3 years worth of pay-per-views watched. I pretty much finished 2.5 Men. I've got to say that I weren't a massive fan of the last few seasons. I felt like the show got really preachy. But then again, you know, it happens. I've just got like 12 episodes left, but I figured, you know what, I'll just watch those after dinner. I only got like 12 episodes left, so some wrestling after that. And as always, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, feel free to leave a like, and of course, comment below, let me know what you've been up to recently. And always subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to go and have a quick shave now and then chill for a little bit before I have to get dinner started. And as always, subscribe if you haven't already and join the family. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and have a nice day. Take care.